The rapid advancement of AI introduces new complexities to the cybersecurity landscape. The traditional focus on threat prevention won't be enough against the sophisticated and dynamic nature of modern cyber risks. But it goes even beyond that. This new world we live in calls for a paradigm shift. We not only need cybersecurity to counteract these new threats, we need cybersecurity to foster a safe environment in which digital interactions can flourish. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, this new way of thinking means outdated technologies, methodologies, and ideologies need to go overboard. Embracing AI in cybersecurity involves reimagining our control systems and cultivating a mindset that aligns technological advancements with comprehensive security strategies. Joining us today is Muraleekrishnan Nair, Global Head, Cloud Infrastructure Services, UST, and Managing Director, Asia Pacific Business Head, Cyberproof. Hi Murli, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Priya. Thanks for taking time and having me here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Likewise, Amurli, we are really glad to have you on our podcast. And of course, we are going to talk a lot about the evolving cybersecurity, landscape, especially with the integration of AI. What are the opportunities? What are risks that we need to take care of? So let's get started. I mean, we would of course like to know more about Cyberproof as well as about you, Murli Krishnan. You have around 2 decades of experience and you bring deep expertise in IT infrastructure, service delivery, and cybersecurity. So we would be really glad to know more about the company as well as about you and your contribution towards the company.
Great. So Cyberproof is a threat-led co-managed security services provider, and we are part of the larger organization UST. We are focused on delivering measurable business outcomes through advanced security operations. We address the 360-degree security spectrum for any enterprise, but at the same time, we specializes on bringing AI and AI-led security to address the customer's problems. We operate with a cloud-first AI-powered security model, which is designed to secure hybrid and cloud-native environment. Our core specialization lies in managed detection and response, which is MDR, adaptive managed XDR, threat hunting, detection engineering, vulnerability management, and security platform optimization. We are a global organization, so we believe in bringing the best talent from across the globe. So that way, we are bringing the best threat hunters, best threat intelligence feeds available in the world, and our technologies spread across the world are very specialized in this operation. We help enterprises rationalize security tool sprawl, close threat coverage gaps, and shift forward intelligence-driven exposure management. Now, exposure and understanding exposure in security is very important in today's world. A key differentiator in this is our adoption to continuous threat exposure management, which is CTEM. This was a term coined by Gartner, and we have a specialized platform which helps customers in understanding their threat exposure and also kind of rating those exposures, understanding them, which are the top exposures for them to address. So moving security from a periodic assessment to a continuous validation. What it means is we are not looking at periodic vulnerability assessments. We are looking at a continuous threat exposure management so that we can address those exposures to make an enterprise secure. We embed identity as a primary control plane along zero trust principles with modern identity governance. Our AI strategy focuses on augmentation, not replacement. We are not committing to customers that the SOC will be done 100% by AI. It's an augmented AI, which is an AI-led SOC, which still having a human in the loop. And that brings the best value in today's world. And we also maintain strong ecosystem partnerships, including Microsoft, Google, integrating contextual AI into analytics workflows. So that's about the company. And now coming to my experience, I've been in the industry for more than 20 years now. Started with infrastructure, building, managing data centers, networks, enterprise IT systems. Then I moved into cloud and helping organizations adopt to cloud, migration in large scale to cloud and optimizing the operations and spend on cloud. And cybersecurity is part of the business which we do and my experience from the beginning, and how cloud and infrastructure is the core part of in the enterprise IT. Cybersecurity is the one which is covering and protecting it. So I've been into all these three fields, into infrastructure, into cloud, and into cybersecurity for long. And I'm with UST and Cyberproof for past 12 years.
That's great, Murli, and we're really glad to see and understand how the company has carved a niche for itself in an increasingly competitive and fast evolving landscape. Likewise, we are also glad to know about your journey till date and your contribution towards the company, and how your strategy or how you're converting that larger vision into execution and measurable impact.
Yeah.
With that foundation, set in place, let's talk about the current landscape of cybersecurity, I would say. I mean, the entire world is digital now, and cyber threats are also becoming more advanced, targeted, and relentless. Yet, many organizations still rely heavily on legacy tools and outdated approaches to defend their systems. Firewalls, antivirus software, and manual monitoring once formed the backbone of cybersecurity. But today, according to experts, they are no longer sufficient. And it's time to explore modern security solutions that can help us stay ahead of sophisticated threats. So, why do you think that these traditional security models are no longer sufficient?
This is a very important question, and it's a very important point for us to focus and work in today's world. So, the technology is changing so fast that makes it imperative for us to catch up with the changing technology and making it secure. What is enough or suitable for security today may not be suitable tomorrow. And with the quantum computing, which is coming and which is very near, can completely change the way we look at cybersecurity and the tools and the processes which we think which are great in protecting systems that may not be sufficient for us to do in this quantum world. Now, till we reach there, we still have a lot of changes happening in the AI and AI-related technology changes. Now, look at the traditional model. These models assume implicit trust within network perimeters. That means if I am an employee of a company and I am trying to access a system, it looks at where the network is or the request is coming from, and it blindly trusts that user and gives access to the system. At the same time, it also looks at which machine this request is coming. It believes that that machine is completely secured and it gives access. And this no longer exists in a cloud native distributed environments because the request could come from anywhere. The users could be connecting from anywhere. So the traditional model of assuming implicit trust is not valid. So that's why the concept of zero trust is very important for it. Now, the tool sprawl has created data silos and operational blind spots, preventing unified visibility across attack chains. Static rule-based access control fail against adaptive adversaries using AI phishing and credential attacks. So the legacy authentication methods is not sufficient for us to address the cloud world and the way people access and use systems. Where is the complexity of AI coming into it, right? Now, AI can create personas, AI can create voice, AI can. So today we see in a lot of this first level help desk or service desk, which we call, which we operate for global customers. We are actually introducing systems to understand AI generated calls because it can imitate words. It can imitate a persona. It can understand who this person is, what his background is, and AI can answer as I am calling a help desk to get my, for example, my password reset. Now, we need to understand that, and we need to also make the agent know that this is not a real person calling, this is an AI calling. Now, how do you do that? That's also part of the security. So we have developed systems which understands these are AI generated calls. These people which you see on the screen, the person is not the real person. Sometimes it's so real that it's difficult to kind of make a differentiation. So that is the level of security you should think about, where AI can be used to breach into systems. It need not be breaking into a firewall and getting in. I'll come to that. But before that, there is social engineering completely manipulated with AI. And that is where people will pretend as another person and ask for password resets, access to systems, creating user IDs, login credentials, and they can simply get in through that. They don't have to breach IT to do that. They can change this and they can get into that. So we need to have systems protecting that kind of an attack in today's world. Now, coming into the AI, we need to think about two things, right? How do you do AI for security? And how do you do security for AI? Now, AI for security is a very important lever, right? We can use AI where detection rules can be made much stronger and faster. When there are events or incidents, the logs can be read by AI much faster, and it can correlate, and it can find that, hey, here is a problem. Here is something which is suspicious, right? That AI can do much faster than a human. And when I said earlier that human in loop, that is when a human actually validates that and takes the corrective action. Now, that is how AI is supporting security, but security for AI is how do you control your organization's usage of AI and ensure there is no security breach because of the usage of AI. It could be people going into as simple as using ChatGPT kind of systems, putting some confidential information there, and how do these tools are actually used by, it could be Gemini, it could be ChatGPT, where some confidential information of the organization is going out. So you need to actually change the way people working, making them understand the importance of how to protect the data and where it can be used, where it cannot be used. Now, the second part of it is when you have business applications which are AI driven. And how does AI today, we are all talking about agents, right? Agentic AI, which is part of your business applications. If you are an insurance firm, for example, you have a application which is facing the customer, and the customer is putting some queries, and the AI works in the background and gives him the advice on what type of insurance to buy or what type of insurance is best suited for the individual. This is all possible with AI. There are many things possible with AI. But how do you protect that AI, customer facing, external world facing AI, which is also accessing your company's information and the data? So that is where we are bringing in the security for AI. So today's world, to answer your question, Priya, there are two things which we need to be careful. How do we protect systems where people use AI to create personas or voice manipulation and coming in, which is a social engineering part of it? Second is how do you protect AI, which is business applications, external facing business applications, uses AI and you protect it. The good part of this is AI is helping us do security better. So use it to protect the systems in a better way.
Was very well put, Murli. And I think today, with cloud environments and remote workforces, the perimeter as to how the security landscape has pretty much changed. And I think the conversation is no longer just about protecting systems. It's more about building a resilience into your entire digital architecture. And because organizations need security models that assume breaches can happen and focus equally on detection, response, and recovery. Now, in your response, of course, you spoke about the both sides of the same coin when it comes to artificial intelligence. Now, for 3 decades, application security has been built around one core assumption, that is, humans write code and other humans must find and fix the mistakes. Now, this assumption is rapidly becoming obsolete thanks to, again, AI agents, because as AI agents and frontier models are taking on a growing share of software development, the entire discipline of application security needs to evolve with them. So, how does the rise of AI generated code change application security practices?
So if you have seen the latest release from Anthropic, which helps people do coding much faster, there are different organizations in AI, which are OpenAI has their own, Microsoft has their own form of doing this. It's all helping us do coding much faster. Now, this is also a challenge for traditional IT services companies where there were thousands of people sitting and doing coding. I'm not saying that it's completely gone, but again, it's an augmented workforce. Now, the efficiency of that workforce can be increased with AI and the coding capability of AI. Now, the time has not yet come where you can leave the complete coding to AI. No, I don't think any organization, both from the services side or from the customer side, is agreeing that, oh, I want to build an application or I want to build a website. Let me do complete AI for doing that. They use AI, but at the same time, it is to increase the efficiency of individuals. Now, the risk associated with the coding by AI or AI generated code is we don't know what is inside, right? That's the biggest risk. So when AI starts generating code, we can definitely put it to testing. We can do functional testing. We can understand what is or how is this particular code behaving and working. But there could be something which can create problem, or there could be something which is not fully secured. So if you don't go line by line and understand the code generated, there is a bigger risk, because the risk is like we don't know what is inside. When you don't know that, you cannot measure the type of risk, or it could be a situational risk. You never know what is that situation and how this code is going to behave, and what is the suggestion the application is going to give the user at a particular situation. So today, the AI generated code, as I said, is not a 100% foolproof system. It needs to evolve. Today, it's only an augmented system where a human can increase their efficiency. But the human still needs to be in the loop to look at what code is generated by AI. And if it needs some change, make those changes to make it stronger, better. And definitely that code has to go through complete test. And now DevSecOps pipeline must embed human in the loop review for high impact releases. That's definitely needed. The code accelerates development, but also amplifies the risk of embedded vulnerabilities at the scale. So the code, as I said, can have vulnerabilities, and as long as you don't know what that vulnerability is, that is the biggest risk which we carry. Now, this is not to say that AI cannot generate fully foolproof code. We are in that journey. It will evolve, and it will be as simple as it can go to one of these tools and say that I want to create an application for doing this. Or let's say a group of developers can actually use AI to generate a completely new ERP system like SAP. So it's possible in the future world, but today the risk is high. Now, the risk is the vulnerabilities it can generate can definitely be high, and a human in loop is the only possibility at this stage, and DevSecOps, which is testing the code at the origin, right? We are not waiting for the code to get released and then you test the application. That's not going to help you. Test the code at its origin, make it foolproof, and then start releasing that code. So that's what I would look at in the AI generated code, which is that capability today.
Definitely, very well put, Murli, and I think you've shared a really important perspective. Perhaps I think the takeaway is that security is no longer owned by just cybersecurity teams. It's the AI driven development is pushing organizations toward a shared accountability where developers, security engineers, and AI governance teams must collaborate much more closer than before. Of course, keeping in intact the human in the loop concept. And I think, it's important that we are moving from simply finding bugs to understanding how the code was created in the first place, and ensuring, like you said, that we need to ensure that the code is free of vulnerability right at its origin. Moving ahead, Murli, you mentioned about the zero trust in early of your responses. Of course, with AI becoming so deeply embedded in enterprise operations, of course, security has never been more critical. And I think with the evolving cyber threats and AI-driven systems, zero trust architecture emerges as a very important game changer. So, zero trust has become a very common framework. Do you think zero trust should also need to evolve in an AI-powered environment?
Yes. So if you look at zero trust must extend beyond human users to include machine identities. If I'm answering your question correctly, so your question was zero trust need to evolve in an AI powered environment. That's what you were asking, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Identity must be treated as a primary security control plane. Now, in both cases, like in the IT today or into the IT of tomorrow, which is an AI powered system, the primary control plane is the access. That's why I was talking earlier about people using AI to create personas or change voices and then getting access. That's one part of it. Now, the other part of it is how does AI manipulate systems when they are asking access to an enterprise system, right? So, from a remote access tool, it actually creates the symptoms of a trusted user and it can get into, right? So, zero trust is very important when you actually look at the AI world. We've been promoting zero trust. We have been pushing this with customers even today. But as more into AI, it is very important that we go into the zero trust world. Now, it means trust. What is zero trust, right? So it actually talks about do not trust a machine, do not trust a user, do only give access for a request for doing a particular transaction. So it's not that I, as a user, ask access to my organization from my home, and I get access to do whatever I want within my given permissions. But that's the problem. So, if I'm asking access to do a particular task, I should be given only an access like a token only to do that particular task, and that is where we limit the risk and making sure that that access given is not trusted. At the same time, it is not given us as a flat access for doing anything. Now, passwords are important. Multi-factor and authentication is also important. Now, if you look at password, if it is passwordless and biometric authentication, it reduces the exposure. And also, multi-factor authentication is definitely required when you give access to systems. Now, AI systems themselves should be subject to continuous validation and privilege restrictions. And also risk scoring must evolve from static thresholds to context aware and adaptive trust decisions. Now you should not have a shadow AI, but at the same time, shadow AI introduces unmanaged risk surfaces. That means if there are developers who are actually making decisions on getting into different AI models, and that's not managed and controlled, that can also create a larger risk. So zero trust must align with real-time exposure management rather than periodic audit. And that is again connecting back to the continuous threat exposure I was talking about. So zero trust must align to understand what are the continuous exposures which are coming into the enterprise, and then should actually align to fix and align to provide details for a periodic audits. Hope I answered your
Yes.
question.
Yes, Murli, I agree with you. And I think your response highlights that, zero trust was never meant to be static. It is a philosophy that has to continually adopt to how technology evolves. And I think in an AI powered environment, we need to understand that identities are no longer just human users or devices. We now have autonomous agents, machine to machine interactions, and AI systems that are making decisions in real time. So that fundamentally, expands the trust boundary. And it's important that organizations ask that when they're building that zero trust architecture, they need to ask, are those architectures intelligent enough to understand the intent, risk, and anomalies at a machine speed? And I think, it's more about enabling a safe scalability in an AI driven world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, since we have discussed, some of the parameters and, the current landscape and also about zero trust. So, what I have come across is that cybersecurity and cyber resilience are not the same. They are related, of course, but both have different demands, principles, and mindsets. Now, cybersecurity, in an organization, it is the ability to protect its information assets from digital threats and vulnerabilities. Whereas cyber resilience refers to an organization's proactivity in being able to anticipate threats or manage attacks when they happen, or have the visibility to adapt to future threats. How do you think, or what are certain tips that you would like to give for enterprises who want to build a culture of cyber resilience and become an AI first enterprise?
Yeah, so resilience, cyber security is protecting your systems, right? So if you look at this way, you have a business and that business needs to be protected from any cyber attacks. So you can protect it from inside out and outside in, right? So that's how MDR kind of thing is outside in. And when you have stronger network security, stronger identity access management, those things are inside out. So you're protecting your enterprise completely with that. Now, resilience is understanding and making the plans that there is nothing is going to be secured forever. So we always anticipate that something will go wrong. Now, resilience is that planning to face that unexpected or expected breach. So the point is, if you are a business, let's say that you are a bank and you are getting breached and you have the best security systems in the world, but you still have the consideration that something can go wrong at any point of time. If something goes wrong, how will you bounce back? How quickly you bounce back? How effectively you can bring your business back without impacting the business and without impacting the customers' assets. So that is where we consider that the resilience as the most important thing in security. So what we talk to customers is we can protect your systems to the best it's possible, but at the same time, let's also be prepared to face the worst situation and make sure that we bounce back quickly. If there is a ransomware attack, for example, now a ransomware attack which hits an organization can take down the organization completely. They go and encrypt your servers, they bring your systems down, and then they ask for ransom. Now, how will you kind of have resiliency in such a system, right? How will you prepare for a day when you actually hit with a ransomware, and how can you bounce back and bring your business back quickly? So if you look at, there are technologies which gives you air gap backups. So what it means is your backups taken from the live systems, they are not going to be impacted by the ransomware. There is an air gap. So the amount of ransomware spread which can happen stops with the production systems, but your disaster recovery, your DR data center is not impacted. So you immediately stand up systems from the DR data center. You can stop the spread of ransomware and you can bring your business back to normal. Now, what to do with your impacted systems that we can do while your business is running at normal? You can address this servers which are encrypted. You can rebuild those servers. You can bring the systems back. You can do all of that. But if you don't have that kind of a plan, when you are hit with an breach or an attack, you are completely gone. You are at the mercy of somebody. Your business is completely gone. So embed security into your business strategy, which is very important, and ensuring a board level visibility and documented risk methodology. We also say that shift from a reactive security to continuous threat exposure management. Your exposures are very important for you to know. And as a CISO, as CIO, CISO, or any of the board member, you should know that my organization have these are the exposures through which someone can actually come in. And if that happens, here is my plan to bounce back. Here is the resiliency which helps me to bring my business back. Now, conduct regular tabletop exercises. That's very important. Now, don't wait for, okay, now I have a plan, I have a resilience methodology which is done, documented, and I'm waiting for 2 years for something to happen. And when something happens, nobody remembers what to do. So that is why it's very important that conduct regular tabletop exercises, simulate these kind of breaches, and making sure that you bring it back. In the IT world, we do that all the time, right? We actually have the primary and the DR sites. We shut down the primary systems, we bring up the DR, and we test the DR. And that's because we expect that the primary data center can go down at some point. And if that happens, my DR is coming back. So similarly, it's very important in security to try these resilience methods and also bringing back systems. So the tabletop exercises are very important. And there should be a transparent reporting and encourage that if there is a shadow AI usage is happening, making sure that people understand that and people report those things. Prioritize transparency and third-party monitoring across digital ecosystems, and at the most, foster continuous learning to ensure teams stay ahead of AI-powered adversaries. The teams needs to know, right? There cannot be kind of an complete systems went down and the organization doesn't know what to do. So there is continuous learning and awareness for the employees to know. So there are books written on that, on digital resilience. But the bottom line is the best security systems can protect you, but always be prepared for something which can happen and be ready to bounce back and bring your business back in the shortest time possible. So that's my point in the cybersecurity and resilience. Yeah.
Great point, Murli, and thank you for sharing certain tips and some strategic steps that organizations can take in building a cyber resilient culture. And I think, especially in AI first enterprises where systems are constantly learning and adapting, and we have new technologies making decisions, new systems coming into picture. Resilience has to be built into the culture and not added as a layer afterward. And I think it's more about people, processes, and governance as it is about technology itself. Having said that, Murli, one last question for you. What is one advice that you would like to give to organizations to stay ahead in a continuously evolving threat landscape?
I would say that you need to understand the larger picture, right? So the larger picture could be geopolitical awareness, which is very important on how state-sponsored attacks can trigger, right? So you need to understand that. At the same time, when you look at the basics on security or IT, you also treat identity as the foundation of modern security architecture. As I said, zero trust, that how do you validate ID, how do you do multi-factor authentication, how do you biometric or authentication. So all that is important, and also move from a tool-centric strategy to intelligence-led exposure management. What I mean is, as I said earlier, you can have the best tools in the world, but none of that is going to guarantee 100% assurance on your security, right? So don't go with, oh, I got the best tools, now I can kind of forget about security, I can just relax and my enterprise will run. You need to always have an intelligence-led exposure management. Keep looking at your exposures continuously. Consolidate and integrate security platforms to eliminate blind spots. This is very important. There could be hundreds of tools, and there are customers where we have looked into with more than 100 tools in security, and they don't know. So there could be multiple tools using the same functionality. Some tools also can bring vulnerabilities to your enterprise. Embed AI governance within existing cyber and data protection frameworks. This is very important because AI governance, and as we move forward with AI, we talked about shadow AI, teams generating AI with the knowledge of the larger CISO organization. Those things needs to be eliminated. And the type of AI which is allowed to be used and what type of governance you are bringing into AI is very important. Adopt zero trust principles across human and machine identities. Now, invest in AI augmentation while maintaining human oversight. So you can always have an AI augmented security, whether it's a security operations center or it is to do vulnerability assessment or it is to do application security penetration testing, you can still use AI. But make sure that it's a human augmented testing so that you get the best results out of that. And coding, we talked about the AI generated code. AI generated code is the best method to increase your efficiency, but at the same time, make sure that there is a human in the loop. So approach the new world with AI in the front, but with the human along with that. That's what I would conclude as I won't say an advice, but my thinking for the coming world for IT and security.
Thank you. And I think the future of software development will be AI driven. The question isn't whether to adopt AI tools, but it should be how to do it securely. And I think with the right approach, you can accelerate your development while building more secure software than ever before. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Murli, for taking out the time and effort to be on a podcast today and helping us understand that AI is a strategic asset in a fight against cyber threats. And by defining a right approach to cybersecurity, prioritizing adaptive strategies, and thoughtfully integrating AI, we can achieve a more secure, efficient, and resilient digital infrastructure. Thank you so much, Murli, for your insights. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Priya. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So, this
Bye.
is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around the role of AI in cybersecurity, how we can build a cyber resilient culture right from scratch to ground up, and how we can probably ensure trustless AI infrastructure fit for future digital landscape. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.